The elections are over, the jostling over positions in the new European Parliament is complete. So what lies ahead? Joining me are three MEPs, each convinced that their party represents what's best for Britain. Timothy Kirkhope for the Conservatives, Labour's Afzal Khan, and for the UK Independence Party, Jim Carver. Thanks very much to all three of you for joining me. First to you, Jim Carver. A big success for UKIP in these elections. We'll look ahead shortly, but just looking briefly at these, back to the elections. Was the UKIP vote all about a protest against these other main parties?
The UKIP vote really was about the positive message that my party was carrying forward throughout the campaign. We were saying there is a better future for Britain outside of the European Union, and we feel that after 41 years this model is increasingly failing. And we're about pride and positivity, and we're saying let's look to the future, let's look for a global future for Britain, let's re-engage our links with the Commonwealth, but let's look further than that, let's re-engage and take our business opportunities far further with the emerging markets. And that was quite a positive message, and the support we were getting on the ground with 4.5 million people voting for us shows that people are ready for something completely different.
Timothy Kirkhope, ready for something completely different. Are you going to listen to the fact that UKIP now has 24 seats, 24 MEPs here in Europe from the UK?
I was just thinking of Monty Python there, where I heard now for something completely different, and that was a little bit my feeling about UKIP. But I have to say that we have taken notice, and I don't treat UKIP in a disdainful or critical way in that sense. We've taken notice of some of the issues that came out of that campaign. Some of them were highlighted by UKIP, some of them highlighted by ourselves, particularly the need for a reform agenda for Europe. But I think that's where we and UKIP would then separate our ways, because our belief is that we can achieve a reform and retain our position in Europe, whereas I think UKIP, they can answer for themselves, think there is no possibility whatsoever of doing that, and I think that's wrong.
OK, Afzal Khan, as a pro-EU party, how are you going to fight back against this UKIP, this swing to UKIP, and swing to the Eurosceptics more generally?
Well, look, first of all, I think as a Labour Party, I believe we did well. You know, more than a 50% increase. We had 13 before. We now got 20 MEPs. Clearly, there's a message out there as well, and I think that's got to be seen in the whole context with what's happening. I think this whole austerity measures that have been going on, people have been basically feeling this, and there's some reaction to that, and they basically want us to sort that out. And that's the key issue for me. As far as UKIP's concerned, yes, they have done well, and we have to acknowledge that. But the key point is they have no solutions.
But have
they
you
can
got
make
to do
all the
more?
right noises, but they don't have any solutions.
OK, and we'll ask Jim Carver in a minute what he plans to do with this 5 years that the electorate have now given him. But, you know, what are you planning to do? How do you react to this vote from the electorate? Are you going to be doing something different, doing something with what they appear to be saying, which is supporting more of the Eurosceptic parties?
Yeah. I think what we need to do is, first of all, when we're in the European Parliament, we've got about 38%, nearly 40% of the European Parliament. We need to use that force in pushing the European Parliament into doing things which are more in tune with the people want to see. And that would be basically more growth, more jobs. And ultimately, yes, there are issues of reform, and we would welcome the reform. The difference between us and the UKIP, I suppose, is they want to be out. We think that's a disaster for Britain. We want to be within, and from work within to do the reform.
All right, Timothy Kirkhope, you've been here for 15 years. There's a lot of talk there's been a lot of talk in this election about, you know, it's new now. Is it new? Are we going to see something different?
I think we have to, actually. I mean, a quarter of the Parliament, for a start, is different. It's new. Different people are here, and undoubtedly there is more factionalism in terms of who was elected. There was a form of protest vote throughout Europe, actually, in different countries. So we do have a number of interesting parties. All I would say is that, from my point of view in Britain, I do think that the Conservatives, as they said in the election, have got a reform agenda. We will look for reform and renegotiation, and I think that we're the only party that has offered the British people with absolute certainty, if we are re-elected in the general election, a referendum on Europe. Now, that is a package which, despite the fact that we were disappointed with our result, I think, in the European elections, nevertheless, it is still a message which I think we should emphasise, and I and my colleagues here are very much reform orientated as we have been for the last, well, for my case, for the last 15 years.
All right, Jim Carver then, are you going to be active in the European Parliament? Are your colleagues, your UKIP colleagues, going to take an active role in the 5 years we have ahead?
Yes, we are. We're speaking up for the 4.5 million people who voted for us, and we're taking forward that message. You know, we are going to be the standard for those people who believe in that better future of Britain.
And what does that involve? Does that mean taking part in committees, for example?
Yes, yeah.
Taking part in the hard work, the hard graft?
Of course,
yeah.
And
That'll be a change.
Well, it won't, Timothy, you say it'll be a change, but if you look at the previous, you know, records from MEP ranking, you know, everybody has to acknowledge that John Bufton, William Dartmouth was some of our highest performing MEP, not just UKIP, but British MEP.
Absolutely, but going into this campaign, some of your colleagues have been saying we're going to be in Brussels as little as possible. Others, perhaps like yourself, are saying we're going to be taking an active role. Which is it?
What you have to understand, Georg, is that we do not have the parliamentary representation that Afzal's party and Timothy's party have at the moment. I'm sure that's going to change after the next general election. I'm positive that, you know, because of the feedback we're getting on the streets and the way we are engaging with people, not just from any particular background. Not only are we engaging with former Conservatives, Afzal will acknowledge we're picking up a lot of support from disillusioned Labour, but what I find very exciting is that we're picking up support from 20% of the electorate who haven't voted in the 2 previous general elections. So we've got this Heineken effect. We're reaching the people that other parties can't reach, and that's what's so very, very exciting about UKIP's message.
Afzal Khan, UKIP have some magic there. They're able to reach voters that you can't reach, but also they're taking from your core, it seems.
Well, look, the bottom line is I think we did well, but we need to do more. We've got another election coming, which is the most important election for Britain. That is the 2015. I think we will see then how well they do as well. The work here, I think the difficulty we have is, if you look at their history, they're the worst performing party in the European Union. Looking ahead, we'll see what they're going to do. I don't believe they're going to do much.
All right then, Timothy Kirkhope, you know, you've heard from Jim Carver that they are planning to take an active role.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, obviously, you know, everybody can change their approach, and if this is the new approach that they're going to take part in the committees, I obviously welcome that, because committees are very important here in debating and trying to sort of refine and improve the legislative process that we're in Brussels. Fine. I mean, you know, I welcome that, actually.
Should Labour and also the centre-right, the other centre-right group here in Europe, have given UKIP a chance to be represented in those powerful committee chair positions?
I think they have been given a chance. The question really is, the difficulty they have is, their agenda is to wreck everything up, whereas what we need to be seeing here is working together to come to the solutions. People elect them to provide solutions, not to come here, get their wages and then wreck things up.
All right, Jim, is that your aim, to wreck things?
Our aim is for Britain's amicable withdrawal from the European Union. You know, we believe in a Europe of 28 independent nation states. You know, sovereignty is an old-fashioned word. Sovereignty is an important word. We have seen the EPP, ALDE, the Liberal Democrat group,
the
centre-left, and the Socialists and Democrats come together and actually marginalise the people who have voted for the parties. And let's just remind you here, this isn't just a UKIP group. We have a group of over 40 people in it from 7 different nationalities, and this isn't just some British idea that people are opposed to European Union.
Okay, all right. This is the situation we're now in. Then this is these positions have now been set. So the question now, and we're running out of time, is how are you going to use the powers, the influence, the seats that you do have, and that applies to all of you. You know, the legislation that's ahead. Where are you going to be focusing your energy, each in turn? Timothy Kirkhope.
Well, we're going to focus our energy, as I said earlier, on reform and on change. And we're going to look to the committees to do that work, but we're also going to be looking to the new commission when it comes in to make sure that it is made up of people of that mind. We're not happy about Mr. Juncker, but now he is obviously getting the job. We're going to cooperate with him as long as he pursues those particular policies of reform as well. That's what we're going to do.
All right, Afzal Khan, your
from
policies
my party's
ahead.
perspective, our key agenda has to be is the growth, the jobs, the investment, and the second is the reform, so that the EU actually works for the people of Britain.
Okay, all right, lastly to you.
I believe what we have seen so far with this parliamentary session is that reform is not an option. The Prime Minister has been completely outmanoeuvred on the issue of Herr Juncker. It's quite clear that the sign up at the front door is business as usual. The federalist
Right.
agenda carries on, and UKIP
Well,
will be speaking for those people.
We'll
Okay.
sort
in the
that.
movement.
All right, well,
Don't hold your breath.
all the hard work now lies ahead. All the legislation, all the new laws will be decided when things properly get underway in the autumn. But thanks very much to the
Thank
three
you.
of you for joining me. Thanks.